evening and welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Rick Morelli. Tonight we have a great show for you, a very informative show. Tonight we're going to be talking about a new program in Luzerne County called CASA. It's a new program that is right now in Luzerne County. It's in 23 other counties, and we have some individuals here who are going to share some great information. And this CASA program is dealing with neglected children. With me tonight, my co-host, Dr. Dave Sosar. Mike DeCosmo could not meet us. And we have two guests here. We have Judy Jones, who's the director of CASA, as well as a volunteer, Sandy Seraphin. And later in the show, we have two judges from Luzerne County. Ladies, thank you for joining us here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Good to see you. We talked a little bit before the show about CASA. Why don't we start out with what does CASA stand for?
It stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates.
Okay. And again, as I mentioned, this is brand new in Luzerne County, but it's not new throughout many other counties throughout the state of PA.
No, actually, it's a nationally acclaimed program that's 35 years old, and it has been in the state of Pennsylvania for over 20 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And like I asked when we talked about doing the show, what is it? What does it mean to the viewers out there? What is it?
Well, the program, which was founded by Judge Sukup in the state of Washington 35 years ago, his intention was completely brought about by what rulings had he made that day for children that didn't speak. Did he really know about that child and what was in their best interest? So he was the one who then created training citizens and bringing them into the courtroom and becoming the advocate for the children, getting to know the children. Children kind of lead a life of not knowing who to trust. So this special advocate was then indeed that individual who would get to know the kiddos better and their families and bring that information back into the courts. And it then made a very lopsided system, one that the judge was getting supplement to the children and youth information. Now he was getting this citizen who was solely there on behalf of the children. That's their focus, and completely what's best for the kids.
Gotcha.
This is for both of you. Judy, you or Sandy may want to discuss this a little bit more as well. A lot of people talk about different kinds of child advocates and big brothers and big sisters and foster care families and children and youth service and that. Where does this program specifically fit in terms of the courts itself and in terms of specifically working with the child?
The court-appointed special advocates become involved in a child's life after the child has been identified as a dependent child in the court system. So, for whatever the reason of maltreatment might be for the kiddos, they typically have been removed from their home and put in foster care. That is the ideal time to engage a court-appointed special advocate, when the children are just entering foster care, because that's when their life begins to change. That isn't always the case. Sometimes the kids have been in care much longer, and it's still beneficial to bring a special advocate into the program. So that's the ideal place for it. And one of the things that people sometimes don't quite understand about the court-appointed special advocate is that we indeed are much different than a child welfare caseworker, that we are not mandated by the Department of Public Welfare. We certainly are part of a Pennsylvania statute that clearly says what a CASA volunteer is allowed to do and expected to do. But we are not like a caseworker. We are very, very concerned about what's happening with the children, where the caseworkers are their purpose is to correct the malady within the family. So they're really looking at the parent and what services can be offered to them. The CASA volunteer is following the child and making certain that that child is being given the services that he or she need to have. So we have special people like Sandy who come forward and offer their
And I was going
their
to
time.
say that with this, when you're talking about abused children, whether it be emotional, whether it be sexual, whether it be physical, this is part of a person's life. This is a child's life that is literally being taken away. Maybe not fully, they still live, but a part of that child's life. So Sandy, maybe you might want to talk about some of the special training that we're talking about within the program to help these children in those special ways.
Well, we received training, as Judy had mentioned. There was a group of us, and for Luzerne County, we were the first class to go on through the training. It was approximately 8 weeks long, and we pretty much covered all the A through Z's of how to be a CASA volunteer and what the expectations were and what you could expect as a CASA volunteer working with the families and most importantly with the children. And what was neat about the class was it's a variety of volunteers. We had about 10, 11 volunteers in the class, everyone from a different walk of life. And it was very interesting, and I could see how each person in that class, each volunteer in that class, really brought something to the mission of CASA and the CASA program. So I'm really looking forward to really getting involved in doing this. I'm very
great.
excited about this.
So if I got that correct, so there are how many volunteers right now at Luzerne County?
We have 10 that are trained,
10 are trained.
and their induction is going to be April 3rd, although some of them have already been inducted because we have had hearing officers and children and youth have come to us and said, we have some cases that we would like you to get involved in now.
Right.
So we have had private ceremonies, but there will be the formal
So
one.
I think, and again, one of the first questions I asked you was, and you answered it before, this is much different than children and youth. And how do we get more people to be aware of CASA? I mean, this, like I said, I think it just started, it's in its infant stage. Just back in June, I saw an article in October, is that right? And so although CASA's been around for 35 years, this is brand new here in Luzerne County. How do we get more people involved, and what else can be, what are your goals with Luzerne County?
Well, certainly our goals is to get our 10 volunteers engaged in the system and get everyone used to what changes occur when you finally get this person who's out there doing their own investigation on behalf of the courts. So that the 10 volunteers that we have right now are certainly going to be those that are going to hit the trenches, and it's going to be a little bit tougher to get started because nobody really knows what to expect from us. But when we look at the future, obviously every CASA director is going to tell anyone that we would love to serve every child that's in the system, but that's not realistic when you have over 500 children that are in a system. So one of the things that we will continue to do is recruit, and we certainly are looking for volunteers from all walks of life. We want to, we're certainly addressing the diversity within the county, so we're encouraging everybody to give us a call, and we put them through a pretty rigorous interview process, but it is important that they understand what they're doing.
And I also want, and you mentioned, I mentioned that this is part of the county, but this isn't being funded by the county. This is all through donations and so forth.
Correct. We were fortunate to get started through the Pennsylvania Coalition of Crime and Delinquency funds, and so that's a 2-year granting process. So they got us off the ground here for Luzerne County, but we are now working on putting a steering committee together of citizens throughout Luzerne County that will help then identify those individuals who might be willing to be sponsors of CASA. We will have fundraisers on an annual basis. You'll hear a lot about us as time goes on, because we really do want to connect the community to us in many ways, and people need to understand that maybe they don't want to be a CASA volunteer, but there are other ways that they can benefit the program. One of them is probably hooking us up to potential funding streams. And the more funding we get, the more volunteers we can recruit, and the more children we can serve.
And I've got to imagine that when we're talking about a county like Luzerne, we talked before, and I know that you have also been spearheading this in a few other counties as well, and you may want to elaborate on where some of those counties are. But Luzerne County is a rather large county. It numbers around 347,000 people, if I remember correctly, and just a number of children that you were speaking about before, 500, and I'm sure that probably if we were to search on out, there are many more children that will be in need of this service as time goes on. How has it worked in the other counties, and can you make any kind of comparisons to Luzerne County for us.
Well, what I can say about Lycoming County, and that was the first program that I started, and we're just celebrating 10 years in April this year.
Wonderful.
So,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And when we started there were nearly 200 children in foster care. And through the induction of CASA volunteers and through the years, what we have seen now is that we are serving nearly every child in foster care, so the number of children have reduced. And the service providing has changed a bit too. There's a lot of front loading of services. So families are getting worked on before they might hit the court system. But what I can tell you in Lycoming County is that what we see in the data that we're collecting through the CASA program is that of the over 500 children that we served in Lycoming County in the 10 years that we've been there, we have a 97% success rate of children not being re-abused or coming back into the system. So that cycle of abuse has stopped. Now, I will tell you that one thing, CASA volunteers oftentimes gets involved in a case, and if adoption is one of the concurrent plan, a lot of times, and our data is showing in Lycoming County that the children, 60% of those children have been adopted, but no failed adoptions, which is just absolutely awesome. Northumberland County is really a tough county. There's nearly 200 children in Northumberland County, and we have about 15 volunteers that are out there working with the kids right now. That process is slower. The funding's a little bit slower coming in, so we're kind of stuck just doing the same amount of children, but the outcomes are good. We're finding that the same thing is happening in Northumberland as in Lycoming, that the kids are not coming back into the system. I think we've had 2 kiddos return, and they were ones that we anticipated coming back in, that we weren't really supportive of them going home yet.
I was going to say that's great, because there's so oftentimes we hear about the cycle of the abused child becoming the abuser later on in life. And if this cycle can be broken through the good work of what you people are doing, it's a win-win in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely, and with people like Sandy getting involved, the one thing that we want these children to experience while they're in foster care and begin to have them see their future as a better place is that we become very involved in the educational system that they might be involved in as well. We reduce the number of schools that the children are switched to. If they're in one school district and being moved to a foster home, the CASA volunteers there saying, look, these kids need to stay put. We want them to have as few changes as they possibly can. So there's just so many things that attribute the success of children's outcomes for permanency when you have a CASA volunteer involved.
Before we take a break, and we're going to have Judge Jen Rogers as well as Tina Gartley joining us and to explain a little bit more, but what can you tell the public out there as to how to find more information regarding CASA, how they could volunteer, what else they could do?
Well, there are 2 websites that they can go to, and the Pennsylvania CASA organization is where the Luzerne County information for telephone numbers and email addresses are, so that's pacasa.org. But the National CASA website is also one that has just a wealth of information and a lot more data in there. So that is casaforchildren.org. So, or they can call me at 570-898-9428.
And we'll have that up on the screen for everyone to see.
Great.
Sandy, I might add just for 1 second, how in particular did you find out about it? Through those numbers, or
No, actually,
through your
I was
searching out?
reading the newspaper
Reading the newspaper.
one Sunday, and there it
Very
was,
good.
and it's something I always wanted to volunteer for, something like that in the community. and
Hopefully through the
this seemed
television
to-
show tonight, we'll be able to help
be
you a little
great.
bit too.
That'd be
That's
great.
great. Thank you
Well,
so
it's
much.
definitely a very good thing. We thank both of you for coming here, explaining, and hope we wish you the best.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Inside Scoop. We're taking a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. We're here now joined by 2 judges in Luzerne County, Judge Jen Rogers and Judge Tina Gartley. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Good to see you guys. I appreciate you joining us, and very interested to hear a little bit more about the CASA, which we talked about in the first part of the program, but more of your involvement and how this is impacting the county and so forth. So why don't we start out with, and this is the first question I asked you before the show. This program has been around for 35 years, but it's brand new in Luzerne County. Why now? Why wasn't it put forth before?
Well, it was a great opportunity when the PA CASA contacted myself as the administrating judge, as well as Judge Burke, our president judge, to say we're seeking your support. We're looking to receive some grant funds, and that we really want to come to Luzerne County to offer our services for the children. We greatly and gladly accepted and assisted in providing letters and supporting their attempts to receive that grant money, because we knew that would be essential to the startup. And the process was a little while, but it occurred. They did receive one of the grants from PCCD and were able then to come into Luzerne County finally, with the courts openly welcoming the PA CASA volunteers to be a part of our system.
Great. And so it's a little bit of a process that needs to go. This isn't just something that's a rubber stamp, and something that
No.
it takes a lot of homework, a lot of due diligence.
There was quite a bit of work PA CASA did to get approval of the grant, and then the setup. It's been, I say what you see now are like we're already up and running and starting, but there have been hours and months and years of hard labor to get here, and great cooperation. And so we're very excited that we're finally up and running. It's a pleasure from the bench perspective to have PA CASA here. Juvenile court is primarily a confidential sealed court, and the public is not allowed access, and for a variety of reasons: the confidentiality of the family and the children, and the seriousness of the allegations, as Judge Rogers and myself are fully aware daily. This is the only time a citizen can come into juvenile dependency court and be a part of the system.
And to be able to see what goes on.
And not just see, participate, add their voice, their recommendation, and it provides the only transparency to the public to allow them to be a part of this process. So it's a great welcome and much overdue.
That's great.
Judge, and you've got to understand when I say judge, and looking at two judges right now, you have to realize that when I'm in the presence of this many judges at once, I get a little intimidated. I've got to tell you right off the bat. But as you just said, it is nice to have someone who is specially trained as the advocate for that child specifically, because again, as we said in the first half of this program, the child at any age that we're talking about as a child are so vulnerable. They lose so much of themselves, and I think parts of their soul, when neglect like this happens. And I know that you do so much as a judge from the bench to try to help that individual, but also to have the advocate to be there, to know, to see as well, has to be a helping hand to you.
I think it's a wonderful addition to a team that's already been assembled to try and help children. The one thing about the CASA volunteer is that that is a volunteer that obviously is committed to that child. Right. And that CASA volunteer can look into various sources that perhaps someone who is busy with various other cases will not have the time, resources, opportunity to actually serve that child. So you're going to certainly bring in the services of a CASA volunteer in a complex case, one that needs specialized attention, thus the name, special advocate. Specialized attention to this child, to give this child a voice that perhaps he or she would not have had. And as we all know, as you had indicated, they are the most vulnerable within our society. So as that person, to be able to give them a voice that they would not have had is such a wonderful achievement of this program.
Yeah,
And there are voices for there are so many people in the courtroom that stand in front of us, but perspective is so necessary to have just another opinion, because as judges, they're the hardest cases that we could try and do as a judge. And I say that after doing so many different courts. This is the hardest court. It's our children. It's the future of our county, of our society. So it's tough. And so having that advocate there is much appreciated by the bench.
I asked earlier to the other ladies as to what their goals would be. What would be your goals to see, and what the future of this with the courts?
Our goal is always to reduce our placements, to not have children in foster care. We work hard for kinship, we work hard, but right now we have over 500 children in foster care or some placement out of home. We got that number down, it's back up. We're hoping that with the CASA volunteer and their special skills and advocacy, we could help to get those numbers reduced or to move children to permanency, and that's our goal. So our goal is to move cases quicker with more insight, What else do you think, Judge? I think she can add.
I think ultimately another goal would be to just increase the ranks of these volunteers so that they can serve more and more cases. And with every new CASA volunteer is going to be an opportunity to help one more child.
Right.
And so if those within our community that may feel a calling to help a child answers the call this way, I know that the courts as well as the county as well as certainly the children are going to be the beneficiaries of that generosity on behalf of that volunteer.
Forever changed.
You will be if you come into this world and help this. It will be a
One of the things that I'm concerned about too is the numbers. Now, we've been hearing about the 500. Judy had mentioned 200 in this county or that county. Are we as so much of a larger county responsible for that many more children as well? It's sad to say, but we are a large county,
We
and
need like hundreds of CASA volunteers.
yeah,
so we
sounds
would
like,
love to
this
to
is
increase that.
this is the bud, but you want it to bloom into an awful lot of volunteers that are
Garden.
capable of helping, and people out there watching and listening to
Absolutely.
this get excited about it and say,
Absolutely.
I'd like to help in some way, shape, or form, either
Yes.
raise money or volunteer or something.
I would say the sun, moon, and stars wish would be that every single case would have a CASA volunteer.
Yes.
That's certainly not practical at this point, considering the infancy stage that we're in. But it's a wonderful goal to try and achieve. If that could ever happen, what a wonderful success that it would be. But even if we could set a goal that over the next couple of years we could have 50% of our cases have those volunteers, that would be a wonderful achievement. And it's certainly going to help with the goal of reduced placements and a keener eye upon that child services.
Making sure they're getting all their everything the child needs, from educational to all of their needs being met. The special advocate provides that.
Is there anything that you're looking at when it comes to the other counties that are involved as to what they're doing, how they're doing it, from where you sit on the bench?
Well, this program's been so established. As soon as CASA was coming, I went through the national, and the national website is tremendous with the information as well as the statewide. This is a tried and true program. The successes are documented. We can fortunately already have that wheel that was invented and just implemented here in Luzerne County, because although there are small counties, large counties also have CASA all over the state and the nation. So we can use their success and their procedures to get us up and running.
Not to hit a sour note in all of this, but just so that we clarify something as well, there were situations in counties north of us where a woman was I believe, taken to task, who was supposed to be advocating for children, I believe as a lawyer. Now, I'd like to make sure that we distinguish the difference. That is not part of this program, CASA. That was part of a court situation that unfortunately had some downside to it, but that is not related in any manner, shape, or form to this.
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Very good.
This is a citizen who comes in and who's volunteering and being trained, and so it provides a very unique set of eyes to a very complex situation.
That's great. And again, listening to this, I think it's great. When we got the call about let's do this show, and I was all for it. And I want to make something clear. I think a lot of people know I'm on the county council. This initiative has nothing to do with our side, the executive or the legislative. It has to do with the judicial side. And I think it's a kudos to the judicial side. As we all know, it has had their problems over the years. And this is a program that you guys have incorporated to be proactive rather than reactive. And I think it's a great thing. We made it very clear this is not something that's supported by the taxpayers other than going out there and getting volunteers. So again, I think it's a great thing. I'm sure a lot of people out there watching are saying the same thing. What last words to tell the public or anything else to get people involved?
Volunteer. Don't be a bystander. Step up and be part of the solution. It's a great thing to be a part of the solution. Whatever small role you play, it's a great reward. And trust me, when you enter this system and help a child, you're changed forever. So we want, come out, volunteer, be a part of this great change in Luzerne County.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but we both want to thank you, both of you,
you.
Judy and
Thank you.
Sandy for joining us, and all of you for joining us here tonight. Hopefully it was informative, and you could get out there, find more information about CASA. The website, the phone number is on the TV there. So please go out there and help out. Thanks for watching Inside Scoop, and we'll see you next time.